Hello guys, so today we're actually going to go over factoring, specifically a equals 1, and we're going to be dealing with what we call trinomials. So we have this guy right here. This is a trinomial, and we're going to be breaking it down into two different parts. So it's usually going to look something like this. You're going to have x plus a number and x plus a number, okay? That's how it's going to, my answer is going to look. So now we have to go from the top one to the bottom one. So we're going to be using two different methods. We're going to be using the factor method, which is the one I usually teach my kids in class. And then we have the X method, which is exactly the same thing, but just represented in a different way. So let's go ahead and do what we need to do here. All right, so first things first, we need to figure out, well, first of all, I need to level my trinomial. So I know A is equal to 1. B is equal to 2 and C is equal to 1. Okay, that's what we have. Now with this information, we're going to start filling up our table that we have right here. So, okay, so we're going to be using a little table for this one. So first things first, you always going to have to multiply your A times your C. In this case, is 1 times 1, which is equal to 1. Okay, and whenever you factor in, there's two specific rules that you need to have. So you need to have two factors, okay, that if you multiply them gives you A times C, but if you add them you need to get B. So let me go ahead and write them here. So we need two factors, okay? We know that we have one right here, but let's focus on the actual table that we have. So we're gonna have A times C, has to go right there always, and this is going to be very beneficial for us once we start doing whenever we have a number other than 1 in the front. So in the second one, it has to equal to, well, in this case 2, but it has to equal to B. Okay, so now we need to find factors of 1. So what gets me 1? This is a really easy problem because the only thing that gives you 1 is 1 times 1. So those are going to be my factors that I'm going to be using. Okay. Now, second thing that you need to look at is the sum. If I add them, do I get 2? In this case, 1 plus 1 equals 2. So is that true? Those are my two rules. I need two numbers that if I multiply and give me A times C, which in this case is 1, which is true, right? We get 1. And then we need two numbers that if I add them, it gives me 2. So this one applies for both of them. So I know that my factors are going to be both 1 and 1. So we just need to go ahead and write them in binomial form. So we're going to go ahead, always put your two parentheses. There we go. You usually always put X. And then you just put your numbers. So it doesn't matter what order I put them. Both of them are 1, so I'm just going to put 1 and 1. Now, at this point, all I'm going to do is pretty easy. Whatever sign they are, in which case this one, both of them are positive, I'm just going to put a plus. If I had a negative sign on one of them, I would put a minus. Okay, so that is it. That's how we're going to go ahead and solve for our factoring problems. Pretty easy, not too hard. Now let's go over the X method. It's going to be exactly the same thing. We have a different problem over here. And we're going to be doing the same thing. But for the X method, you put B on the bottom. So I'm going to put B. And then you're going to put A times, oh, I color it differently. So let me go ahead and go red for that one. So it's going to be A times C. No, green. Where's green? Okay, no, B. There we go. Right, so that's the first thing I want you guys to do. So in this case, we know that A is 1, C is 12, so we multiply them. But remember, this one, it has a sign at the end, so it's going to be negative 12. Okay, pretty easy. Negative 12. Now on the bottom, we're just going to write B, which in this case, B, if I'm not mistaken, is just 1. Because there's nothing in front, so there's an invisible 1 in there. So 1. Okay, so same rule applies. I need two factors that if I multiply them, gives me 12. But if I add them, gives me a positive 1. Okay, so we need to figure out multiples of 12. Negative 12, actually, so that's going to be very important. Now, because it's negative, one of my sides is going to have to be positive or negative. So we're going to go ahead and decide that at the end. So let's go ahead and write my factors for 12. Okay, so I know 1 and 12 gives me 12. 2 and 6 gives me 12. 3 and 4 gives me 12. And I believe that is it. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Now, I'm going to have to look through all my factors here and decide which one can give me a positive 1 whenever I add them. Okay, so is there a possibility I can get a 1 from 1 and 12? Absolutely not. Because we're going to have to change the sign of one of them, but it wouldn't. That one would not give me a 1. Now, 2 and 4, can that give me a 1? No. What about 3 and 4? Yes. So here's where you have to think a little bit. It's kind of like going back to just doing math. What minus what can give me a 1? In this case, I'm going to have to make one of them negative. And the one that's going to become negative is the 3. Because 4 minus 3 is equal to positive 1. Now, if I made the 4 negative, then that would give me a negative 1, which is not what we want. We're looking for positive 1. So my answer is just going to be negative 3 and 4. Okay. Now, whenever you're doing the X method, you always divide by whatever's in front over here. Okay, and we should have done that one on the other side too, but I'll explain more whenever we have something else. So now we're gonna divide this one and this one by 1. Okay, now we have two different fractions here, and this is gonna be really important for us for the next type of problems. Now we have this. The way that you turn this into your binomial is pretty easy. You always put your parentheses, but before we put x, we gotta look at the fraction. Okay, so can I simplify 3 over 1? Yes, but let's say we couldn't. Let's say we couldn't simplify this. Now, what you're gonna do, you're gonna grab the bottom of your fraction and you're gonna place that one first. Okay, so let's do that first. So I would do 1 and then I would put my x. And then I would write my top number right here, second. So in this case, I'm going to put negative 3. Okay. And I would do the same thing for the other one. I would look at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and put the 1 in the front. And x plus 4. Now, this is going to make a lot more sense once we start dealing with a not equal 1, meaning that's going to be any other number than 1. And this is going to become more obvious. But that is it. I know this is kind of a long video. I'm sorry, but factoring tends to be one of those things that people tend to have problem with. Now, all I'm going to do at this point, I'm just going to be working through all the other problems. And have a great day, guys.
Tu as sommeil?